Sitting across from my family on my 28th birthday, I realized my life was nothing more than a carefully orchestrated stage play. My mother leaned over the white tablecloth, her eyes cold as polished stone, and whispered a direct command to my father. Within seconds, my brother pushed his chair back and walked out of the restaurant without asking a single question. I sat frozen, watching the empty doorway while the rest of the table continued laughing, as if breaking into my home was completely normal. For years, my mother, Judith, ran our household like a dictator disguised as a grieving saint. My father was her spineless enabler, and my older brother Julian was the golden child who could do no wrong in her eyes. I was always the scapegoat, forced into silence to maintain our family image while raising my young son, Jonah, alone in a modest apartment. No matter how hard I worked or what I accomplished, my mother treated my independence like an act of high treason that required constant punishment. That night at the restaurant was supposed to be a celebration, but my mother arranged the seating so I was isolated from everyone else. When she quietly instructed Julian to go change the locks on my apartment while we ate, my stomach twisted into knots. I had lived in my place for 3 years, paying every bill myself, yet my family believed they owned every inch of my privacy. I excused myself to the bathroom, staring at my reflection while trying to understand why they needed access to my living room so urgently. An hour passed before Julian returned to the dining room, his face completely drained of color as he approached our mother. He bent down and whispered that there was police tape stretched across my front door and cruisers parked outside the building. My mother dropped her silver fork onto her plate, the loud clatter cutting through the quiet restaurant. I stood up without saying a word, grabbed my purse, and walked out into the pouring rain, knowing the fragile illusion of our family was finally collapsing around us. The drive across town felt like a nightmare, with wet asphalt reflecting the flashing red and blue lights waiting outside my complex. Officer Vance met me near the breezeway, informing me that someone had forced my door open and triggered a neighborly break-in report. My heart slammed against my ribs when he asked if anyone possessed extra keys to my unit. I looked him dead in the eye and gave him my brother name, explaining that my mother had ordered the break-in just hours ago. Walking through my damaged doorway felt surreal because nothing valuable was missing from the living room. However, every single photograph of me and my son had been turned face down on the furniture, creating a chilling atmosphere. Sitting in the center of the coffee table was a plain paper note warning that dark truths always find their way into the light. Officer Vance swept his flashlight over the room, promising to investigate while advising me to find a safe place to sleep for the night. By the following morning, the police department uncovered a paper trail connecting my mother to the building handyman, a man named Lyle. She had secretly paid him a massive sum from her personal account to enter my home and retrieve a locked storage chest from my closet. That box contained fraudulent loan applications, real estate deeds, and tax documents where my mother had forged my signature to cover my father failing business debts. She had used my credit as a financial shield for years without my knowledge. I texted my mother to meet me at my apartment that evening, determined to face her without backing down. She walked through the door carrying her usual air of superiority, demanding to know why I involved law enforcement in private family matters. I stood my ground, pointing out that she sent a criminal to invade my home just to cover up her financial crimes. She tried to justify her actions, claiming she did everything to protect our family future, but her words sounded hollow and pathetic. When I informed her that I had already turned all the forged financial documents over to Officer Vance, her fake composure shattered completely. Her face turned pale, and she accused me of destroying the family that sacrificed everything to raise me. I stepped closer, looking directly into her frantic eyes, and told her that she destroyed our family the moment she turned me into her scapegoat. She cursed at me, warning that I would end up completely alone before slamming the door behind her and rushing out into the storm. The fallout was immediate and ruthless, dominating local headlines as federal investigators opened a massive inquiry into my parents' assets. My father was forced to resign from his executive position in shame, while my mother became an absolute outcast among her social circles. Julian tried calling me dozens of times to beg for mercy, but I blocked his number, finally cutting the toxic ties that had held me back for decades. For the first time in my life, the suffocating pressure in my chest was completely gone. A few days later, I sat in my quiet kitchen watching my son eat breakfast in the morning sunlight. The police officially cleared me of all financial liability, ensuring my personal credit and future were entirely secure. Looking at Jonah laughing at the table, I realized that true peace is not something you passively wait for from toxic people. Peace is something you aggressively claim for yourself. And no matter what happens next, those locks will always belong to me.